What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Facade. I am your host, Gavin J. Gallagher, and on this podcast I explore the mental and emotional game often playing out subconsciously in your mind and the mind of everyone else in the real estate or property investment market. The key to success in this game is to master your mindset, your behavior, to take control of your thoughts, your emotions, and most importantly, your ego. So here we are, guys, on episode number 43. Last week, I was talking about the importance of having a mentor, and this week I'm actually going to be talking about various trends and predictions that I am seeing and the risks and opportunities that are presenting themselves from shifts in consumer behavior, driven a lot by the pandemic, obviously, but also there are sort of big trends in technology and innovation in general that seem to be kind of making things change. What I wanted to go into first, usual little update, is the Facebook group is now at 260 members. I admitted another member just yesterday, and we're kind of starting conversations in there. So anyone who is listening to this who would like to reach out and connect with me, introduce topics of discussion, whatever it is you might be interested in covering here in the podcast, that is the best way to get in contact with me. So if you join the group, it's called Behind the Facade Community, and it's in Facebook, and that way we can connect. And I try to do a weekly live video in there. I usually welcome new members and a separate video, and I'll also kind of introduce, say, the topic or the theme of the week. And this week I'm looking at trends, predictions, risks, opportunities, and shifts in consumer behavior. I've done it again, guys. It is Sunday evening and I'm hitting record at 10:15 p.m. Would you believe? This is crazy stuff. It's just so busy in work at the moment, but I am committed to this podcast, and so tomorrow at 5 a.m. this podcast will be live, and those of you who are the early birds that like to listen to it first thing on Monday morning, this will be for you guys. Now, just another little update. Clubhouse. I've been talking about Clubhouse a lot in recent days and in recent episodes, and it is really on fire at the moment. And by the way, my name, if you are looking to connect with me in Clubhouse, is at Gavin J. Gallagher, which is pretty much my handle for everything in social media and all of that. Guys, I have 5 invites to give away, and I just received them. It seems like I get 3 or 4 invites during the week, and I usually get another 5 or so on Sunday. So I don't know why it is. They're just, I guess they have some sort of a schedule and that everyone gets the same. But I have 5 invites, and I would like my listeners to be the beneficiaries of these invites. So if you are interested in having a Clubhouse invitation, definitely send me a message. Get a message to me on social media. I don't really care how you do it. Just get it to me, and the message should be, "Hi Gavin, I would love a Clubhouse invite," confirming that you have an iPhone, because at the moment it's only available on iPhone, and then you send me your mobile number that is associated with that iPhone. As I said last week, I'm not interested in your phone number. I'm not going to be connecting with you after this unless you want me to, but I am not looking to spam anyone. This is just the only way that you're able to connect on a Clubhouse is using your mobile phone. It's in fact, I've been reading something about people's privacy and all of that kind of stuff, and that may be an issue for Clubhouse in the near future in terms of GDPR and stuff. But at the moment, I'm not worrying about that. I am just looking at the incredible growth of the platform and the numbers of followers and the knock-on impact. If I just to sort of point out, I've actually now at 2,200 followers, and I'm about to hit 2,300 followers. It's just going up so fast, and a lot of those same followers are going straight through and following me on Instagram. So my Instagram has gone, it just keeps on going up, and it's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. So if anything, if you just want to, grow your Instagram, Clubhouse is a good reason to join just for that reason, because it connects you. People who are on Clubhouse, at the bottom there's always a connection to your Twitter profile and your Instagram profile, and my habit tends to be that I will go down, if I'm following you in Clubhouse, I'll follow your Instagram and your Twitter as well. One of the topics that came up in Clubhouse this week, and I was in quite a few different rooms, and there's some really, really interesting discussions going on, some real domain expertise out there, and you can listen into any kind of area that you want. There's guys from the US that are talking about US real estate matters. There's guys from the UK talking about UK real estate matters. I'm sure there's guys out there talking about Australian and various different languages that I'm not privy to, but the Irish market is kind of small at the moment. I haven't heard too many discussions in that regard, but certainly the UK, every morning, it seems like 7 days a week at 7 a.m, there's a thing called the coffee hour, the property coffee hour, and that is a UK focused discussion. And then I know there's mortgage brokers and stuff in the UK, in the US, that are putting on a fairly regular discussion. So if you guys just want to go in and listen to what's going on, you can pick up a lot of knowledge and expertise and stuff. And that is how I came up with the topic here today, trends and predictions. These are all things that I actually picked up just listening to questions that were being put to the room. And I jumped in and I answered a couple of people's questions. And I thought I took a note of these and sort of said, this would actually be pretty interesting stuff for you guys, the listeners. So where do we begin? Well, I think this is a topic that I could go super deep with, but I'm not going to go too deep because apart from the time of night that it is, there are just so many scenarios that, you could basically create this endless loop. And I'm just going to go into the ones that are kind of most important as far as I'm concerned. First of all, let's talk about the economic impacts of the current situation. COVID-19 has done massive damage to the economy. Job losses, business closures, entire industries like retail, food and beverage, hotels, all of that. Those are all in major, difficulty at the moment. And apart from that particular sort of issue, you've also got the major stores that were already under attack from the internet and stuff. And so companies like Debenhams, House of Fraser, Toys R Us, like there's just dozens and dozens of names of companies out there that have gone wallop, that were enormously successful businesses for decades, and suddenly they're gone. And so obviously retail as a sector is on the out. But the question is it really? I mean, if you just have to take a look at the Apple store around the world, and those are incredibly profitable businesses in their own right. And they're a huge contributor to the bottom line for Apple. And you have to wonder, if Apple can make it work, then what are people doing wrong? And how can these other businesses make it work? When the pandemic is over, are we all going to go crazy and go out shopping, visiting the stores in the city centre, going to bars, clubs, restaurants? One of the questions is there actually going to be a boom when this pandemic comes to an end? That's a big if. It's a big, what if. It's very hard to work out. The other alternative to that is that consumer behaviour has changed permanently, and there's no going back to how it was. And certainly retail, that has been the case for many years. And I've told you the situation before that Blockbuster was a retail store that was very popular back in the beginning of the 2000s. And I was going after those guys, trying to kind of find stores for them to go into. And Blockbuster wasn't, more than 10 years later, they were gone. The entire business, it was worth billions, and it had thousands and thousands of employees all around the world. And a decade later, it was just a distant memory and had folded up and gone bankrupt. And what's incredible is I can remember reading about the president or the CEO of Blockbuster. I think he was paid $64 million salary and bonuses and all that in the year before they started to experience troubles. And this guy was asleep at the wheel. And this was the same year that Netflix approached, Reed Hastings approached Blockbuster with Netflix and basically offered to merge with them, and he wanted to sell Netflix to Blockbuster for 50 million at the time, and they laughed him out of the building. They basically told him, we're going to crush you, just watch. And sure enough, it was the other way around. And today Reed Hastings is a multi-billionaire, and the business is just a Goliath in the media space. And sure enough, Blockbuster had an opportunity to buy it, but they were asleep at the wheel. And so these kind of consumer trends and behaviors and stuff can really shift industries, and it's something that I kind of watch quite a lot. And I wonder about the retail sector. I'm wondering what's going to happen. Is there going to be a shift to a new type of retail that, for example, Apple seems to have figured out, and it seems to be kind of an experience more than a shopping, a standard kind of a shopping thing. If you go into, like, they call it click and collect now, and there's, you can go into the store and you can try on the thing that you like, and then if you like it, that's it. You click on it and you buy it, and they'll deliver it to you. You don't walk out with shopping bags and stuff. This seems to be the way it's going. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to the retail sector. Also, who is going to pay for all of this, all of these billions and billions in stimulus and relief packages that are being pumped into the economy by the governments? I mean, the end of the day, that all has to be paid back. These billions were not expected to be paid out. If you go back, I mean, at 2 years now, people would have had, the next 5 year, the budget's planned for the next 5 years. That has all been torn up and thrown away. This last 12 months has fundamentally changed government sort of economic situation. And government cannot borrow money endlessly without consequences. And you only have to look at the economy in Greece and what they went through. They got into this sort of disastrous borrowing situation where they could, the local governments could borrow as much as they wanted, and they paid big fat salaries to all of the civil servants, and they paid big pensions and all of this, and then suddenly the music stops and somebody has to pay for this, and the consequences are usually massive austerity, which is extremely unpopular for the people who live there and who have to pay the taxes to kind of pay all of this stuff. So the question is, who is going to pay for all of this stimulus? And I definitely think taxes are going to shoot up, but it's going to be very unpopular. You're probably going to see governments changing because of the unpopularity, but somebody has to pay at some stage, and that throws a big amount of uncertainty into the mix. The other positive side, I suppose, in one sense, is that if we are all real estate investors, property investors, then all of this stimulus that's circulating, all this extra cash that's being pumped into the markets could trigger inflation, which will ultimately push up asset prices. And so you really need a crystal ball, to figure all this stuff out. Anyway, I'm going to leave the discussion on the economy behind. Let's talk about some of these trends. You've got obviously Clubhouse. A lot of talk on Clubhouse about commercial to residential conversion, and definitely I think there's you're going to see a lot of that. And I've actually been listening to conversations about even small shopping centres that are anchored by, say, a big retailer, whether it's Tesco or Dunnes Stores or whoever it would be in whatever country you're operating in, where the business, all of the small little stores all close up and actually go out of business, but you have the anchor store that sells food, and that is the store that continues to operate. And in a sense, the people who own the shopping centre, it doesn't make much sense to continue holding a shopping centre that only has the anchor tenant and none of the other smaller shops and restaurants and bars and cafes and whatever it is that was there when it was designed originally. And so what is happening, I've heard, and this is quite interesting, is that the big stores that is anchoring it are actually joining forces with the developer, and they're starting to work together in figuring out how to extract the most value, because you can't close down those shopping centres without either paying off the big retailer or joining forces with them and giving them a share of the profits or something. So it does seem like there are some plans afoot to do that kind of thing. Now it's going to be limited enough because, first of all, take a high street in a town or whatever. There's going to be a lot of resistance from the planning authorities to shutting down, the existing high street. You've got a lot of life that pours out into the high street. You've got cafes and food and beverage, restaurants, shops. All of that stuff is what makes a town work. And so I can see there being huge resistance to plans to convert that into residential. You'll probably be allowed to do residential above, but I do not think that the ground floor unit is going to be turned into residential, because it kind of makes it a blank. It just blanks out the street, and it kind of destroys the life and soul of a village centre or a town centre. So I think there's going to be a limited opportunity in that kind of area. And then obviously I've talked about shopping centres and malls. The other question is retail parks. What's going to happen to them if they are not surviving? There are places like, obviously Toys R Us is one example of a big sort of retail store that went out of business. And I'm sure there's many other examples, but retail parks tend not to be very easy to convert into residential because of the planning laws and the zoning and stuff. So what are the alternative uses that you can think of to do with those kind of businesses? And the vacant shop in the high street, if it can't be converted into residential, what can it be converted into? And one of the thoughts that I've had in my own, just looking around at opportunities that are out there, is the possibility of converting stuff into co-working or flex office space. So if you think about this from the point of view of shopping centres that have a large number of units that are closed. I actually saw this in my hometown here in Dublin, and there's a place called CHQ. And back during the recession, CHQ was this beautifully restored old, I think it was an old warehouse. I think it was a place that they stored bonded goods. And, dating back to the 1700s or something, this was a bonded warehouse. And what they did is they gave it a completely fresh look and turned it into a retail centre. And there was lots of shops that were there for people to rent. And unfortunately, they got the timing wrong. And when the economy sort of sank, they just could not get this place. So I think it cost 40 million euro to restore this building. And in the end, along came somebody who with deep pockets, and he bought it for 10 million. So he got it at 1/4 of the cost of what it cost to build it out. And what he actually did, this investor, I'm not going to use his name, but he actually went to a co-working operator called Dogpatch Labs, and they put this co-working operation in on the ground floor. And it was extremely successful because it was city centre located, but also it was a really kind of cool building and quite modern, but it was a restored old building, so it just had that kind of cool look about it. And a lot of tech kind of entrepreneurs and startup founders and things all wanted to kind of work in this hub, and it became very, very popular. And naturally enough, when people are working in a place like that, what do they want to do? They want to go out and they want to get a coffee, they want to buy some lunch, they want to do all of these things. And so they were the stimulus that actually created the need for Costa Coffee to open up and for various sandwich bars to open up. And now if you step into that place, it's a bustling place. All of the stores are in use. There's lots of different restaurant outlets and things like that. Now, obviously, COVID might have knocked that. I haven't been around there in a while, but it was really doing well. And Dogpatch Labs, the co-working outfit that were there, actually doubled the size of their they went into the floor above, which is a mezzanine, and they took the floor below in the basement. So it's really interesting to see how something like co-working actually created the life that actually generated all of the other business. And so, and then on top of that, I think that flex office is going to become more and more popular in regional areas. So that was a city centre location in Dublin, but now that you've got the pandemic shifting so many people and the way we work, so it'll be working from home is not that attractive if you've got a very small home and you don't have like an area to work, but working near to home does seem like it's going to become more and more popular. And I think what a lot of big corporates are starting to look at is having their sort of central headquarters in the city centre, but then having a number of either satellite offices, or they'll enter into agreements to rent desks or, offices in flex locations that are near to where their staff live. So you could end up with places that are kind of on the commuter belt that people can go to that are only like 15 minutes from home, instead of having to drive or take a train for an hour or two every morning. I think that's going to be a shift, and I'm definitely one that would kind of believe that. By the way, don't just assume that you can open up your own flex office with and it's a simple enough thing to do. It isn't. There is a whole new skill set there that's required that you need to learn. It's kind of hospitality, there's customer acquisition. There's a whole load of areas, and I would refer you to episode 29 of this podcast, where I spoke with Adam Blasky, who built a company called the London Clubhouse, or Clubhouse London. And no relation to the app that we're talking about on the phone these days. It was actually a kind of upmarket co-working place, and it was very popular. I was a member there for a year or two when I lived in London. Another behavioral shift that is taking everything by storm is ghost kitchens, and they're also known as dark kitchens or virtual kitchens. These are essentially professional kitchens that just do not have the dining facilities or the seating areas or the front of house operations. And so just think about a big professional kitchen that you'd have in a restaurant, just no restaurant attached to it. And what they do is they're exclusively for delivery, and it has become a huge business in the US. So, I mean, obviously, if you're listening from the US, this is already there. You're not going to be, noticing anything new, but I don't think it is as big in the UK or Ireland, and I'm not sure about Australia and anyone else who's listening here. By the way, if I'm getting this wrong and if there's a load of them out there, please do let me know, because I am curious. But one person who saw this about 2 years ago was Travis Kalanick, and anyone who's into technology and stuff will know that name, because he was the founder and CEO of Uber until he was kind of pushed out because of all of this sort of controversy surrounding him. But I think he got a couple of billion for his shares in Uber when he got out, and he has invested $130 million in his ghost kitchen startup, and it's called Cloud Kitchens. And he spent that $130 million setting up in 40 different locations, and it's a kind of white label brand. So you can go in there and you can basically sign an agreement with these guys, give them a menu, and then they will produce food for you according to your menu. And you can go off then and you can set up your food and beverage business. And all you need to worry about is the brand and the marketing and the ordering and delivery. You don't need to worry about the cooking aspect. All of that is fulfilled by the ghost kitchen operator. So it's really interesting. And it's basically the food prep is done by others. And so food prep as a service, you could call it. I'll tell you what's really interesting, and this is where it can be done by complete novices in the restaurant game. There is a YouTuber called Mr. Beast. Now, anyone who is not into YouTube and not familiar with the different names will never have heard this guy, but he's actually a massive name in the YouTube community with over 50 million subscribers. And a lot of people speculate that he may become the first billionaire on YouTube because he's just that popular. And what he did in November last, so only a couple of months ago, he announced that he was going to open a burger restaurant business, and it was going to be called Mr. Beast Burger. and it was going to be a delivery-only restaurant service. And within a month, he had set up the business with 300 locations and an app on the phone. And in December, just past, he went out and in 300 different locations around the US, he opened up, and it was in massive demand. They actually had like queues of cars waiting at the ghost kitchens in order to collect the food. And so that has been massively popular, massively successful. Obviously, he's got the distribution using his massive voice and his reach on YouTube. And so that's probably going to be one of the biggest food and beverage stories of 2020 or 2021. So the question is, could you find vacant, unwanted commercial properties that can be repurposed into a ghost kitchen? Maybe that's an opportunity. Another area I'm going to talk about now relates to, it's another delivery related aspect of the behavioral changes, and that is last mile fulfillment. So we all know Amazon, and we've all been ordering from Amazon for years at this stage. Well, logistically, Amazon have been opening up huge warehouses on the outskirts of towns, and they what they do is they are their main distribution centers, and those warehouses would serve maybe smaller warehouses that are further out into the community. But as the demand for same-day deliveries grows, you're going to start seeing micro warehousing popping up in city centres around the world. Now, at the moment, certainly in Ireland, if you order from Amazon, usually it's about a day or two before you actually receive your product or whatever it is you ordered. However, in cities like New York, where there's real dense cities, and I think probably this is the same in London as well, you order from Amazon and literally 2 hours later there's a knock at your door and they're delivering it right to you. Now, this is something that is going to be rolled out by Amazon around the world, but it's going to take some time because that aspect is something that they're working on, the last mile fulfillment. It's very, very hard to do it unless you start opening up thousands of units around the place. And like as we talked about with Mr. Beast Burger, 300 locations they were able to open in the space of a month. If Amazon is able to grow at the rate that it's growing, I think they're adding something like 1,000 employees a week or something like that. It's absolutely incredible, the growth that they are growing at the moment. And that is probably also going to be, that same amount of growth is going to be in the micro warehousing. But that is just Amazon. They might do their own thing, but how many other businesses out there are going to be looking to do this? I can imagine quite a few, because if you can't compete with that kind of delivery service in 1 to 2 hours, then it's a threat to your business. So I can see a lot of people looking for micro warehousing. And so I don't know, is that an opportunity? Could be something to give some thought to. Then what else? Another trend. Oh yes, this is one of my favorites to rant about, and that is carbon reduction and energy efficiency. Going green is going to be big business, in my opinion. And just to give you an example, a pal of mine, he's an architect, and he had his own architectural firm a couple of years ago, and he decided he was going to change the focus of the practice from just typical architecture to completely focused on green. And he even used the name green in his so the business is now something green rather than the usual kind of architects or whatever. And he's actually received a huge amount of big corporate jobs off the back of it, because the big corporate occupiers are now starting to look at this in a big way. And just so happens that they've got the money to spend on it, and they do want it to be sort of modern, technology, innovation-led, and environmentally friendly. So I think that is a big opportunity. And what's happened in Copenhagen in Denmark, they announced a couple of years ago that they were going to be the first carbon neutral city in the world by 2025. Now that's only 4 years away. So that is not going to, that is not going to go unnoticed. I think there's going to be a lot more cities and countries that will follow suit. It will be unpopular in many cases because it will put pressure on people, but it's also going to be very popular with the younger community. And I think, teenagers and things like that, this is all becoming a major focus for them. So I do think it's going to actually be politically something that needs to be done. And it'll actually pitch young people against older people who are holders of assets, who may have to start making changes to their assets in order to make them more environmentally friendly. So I do think this is necessary, because I think climate change is a big risk to us all. And we all ignored, when I say we, I mean the society in general was warned by scientists of the risks of a flu-borne virus or a pandemic. And, Bill Gates was warning us about this 6 years ago, and he actually did a TED talk about it, and people just heard him and then just ignored it. And what has it cost us as a society? It has cost trillions. And it's beyond anyone's imagination how costly this pandemic has been. And at the time, people thought, well, what's the chance of a pandemic? Why would we spend money trying to kind of sort a problem before it actually is a problem? Well, now look at the cost, and you actually wonder. They say that it would only have cost something like 5% of what it has cost us now to fix the pandemic issues. And that 5% looks pretty cheap now. But at the time, people were thinking, sure, maybe we can do without spending the 5% at all. Cost of inaction is just really, really expensive. And it's like the insurance policy that you wish you had after you've got a problem. At the time, it looks expensive. It looks like it might be an expense that you could avoid. But as COVID has shown us, if you ignore what scientists are warning, you usually live to regret it. And so what are they all warning us about for the last 20 years? They're warning us about climate change. They're warning us about sea level rises and the melting of the ice caps and the death of, the biosphere, or whatever you want to call it. There's just going to be a huge cost. And when this starts to actually become more and more evident, for whatever way that takes form, whether it's larger storms, more costly hurricanes, maybe it's warmer summers and winters, and when it starts to look like this is actually going to have a really big cost, that's when there'll be this sudden like whiplash for all of us out there, when we're suddenly reminded that now we have to go and do all of this. And I think what is this going to mean to you and I, the average person? I think it's going to mean that expensive retrofits of your rental properties are quite likely. And by that I mean like new heating systems, for one. If you look at the heating system that you've got in your rental properties at the moment, or your home at the moment, most likely it's gas-fired central heating, could be oil-fired central heating. Both of those are going to be banned in the coming years. And when I say coming years, like a year from now, oil-fired will be outlawed, and gas, I think, in 2 or 3 years. And it'll be illegal to sell that stuff. And you can be sure that, and I've seen this with air conditioning equipment in buildings that I manage. When they stop making the stuff, they also stop making the parts for the stuff that you have. So if you have a problem with your gas-fired central heating in 3 or 4 years' time, there won't be parts available to repair it, and you'll have to go and replace it. So bear that in mind. Also, insulation standards are going to be increasing, and you might have to retrofit your house, windows, doors, solar panels on roofs, fireplaces that let all the draft go up. I think in the next 2 decades, literally billions are going to be spent on this. And so it's a risk to you as a landlord, but also it's a massive opportunity for people out there who want to look at a business that has prospects, good prospects. And I would have thought that is definitely one. So, okay, right, guys, let me see, looking at the time, it's now 10:45. I think I'm going to wind it up. I've got some homework for you guys to do. I would like you to go out and just open your eyes to these changes, these trends, and these shifts in consumer behavior, and just look around when you're walking around. What is going to happen to the buildings that you're looking at every day that you pass by? And can you get out ahead of these changes? Can you be the person who takes advantage? Look out for properties that nobody wants at the moment, that are sitting on the market for ages because, you know, they've been left behind by these trends or whatever. Maybe it's a retail unit. Maybe it's, you know, some unit that is damaged by, you know, innovation. Is that possibly something you could repurpose? And, you know, anyway, I just think these are exercises that are good. And, you know, if nothing comes of it, well, you know, it didn't cost you anything, but it is worth considering. And final sort of point is that there's a huge amount of uncertainty out there, and it could make you want or be inclined to do nothing. But the reality is during these times of uncertainty, that is when fortunes are made, and now also lost if you happen to be the person in the wrong sort of part of the economy. But I do think that this uncertainty out there is going to be a massive opportunity for some of us who spot these trends early and get in on. And the question is, are you going to be an innovator and be one of these people who's riding this technology wave or this innovation wave, or are you going to be one of the guys that are getting washed out to sea by this big wave of change? And are you going to be one of those kind of guys that's trying to hold on to the past, or are you going to be the trend setter that is in front of it? So that's it for episode 43 of Behind the Facade. Thank you so much for listening. As always, my number one ask is for you to leave a review on the platform that you're listening, or indeed just to share this one episode with somebody else who you think might benefit from it. In the show notes, I will put a link to episode 29 of the podcast. And if you've got any other questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, please connect with me via the Facebook group Behind the Facade Community. Alternatively, you will find me on social media using the handle Gavin J. Gallagher. And that includes YouTube, where I am starting to focus. I'm starting to look at YouTube a little bit more seriously. I'm going to start uploading videos there. So go and check out my YouTube channel, Gavin J. Gallagher. And lastly, if you want to stay up to date with me, various events that and my book and things like that, please add your name to my email list, and you'll find that over at www.gavinjgallagher.com/go. All right, folks, hope you have a great week and speak soon.